Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie, and I mostly make videos surrounding topics such as music, makeup, as well as mental health. Today's video is an album review, and therefore it falls into both music and mental health. If you're new here, it's been a while since I've filmed an album review, but I tend to make my album reviews more so focused heavily on analyzing lyrical content with a mental health focus. I'm currently a pre-licensed therapist, and my background tends to really help me in seeing various themes in music, especially if it is pertinent to mental health. And if you're new here and did not know, Waterparks is my favorite band in the whole entire world, and I have said it in many other reaction videos, but yes, it is true. So I cannot wait to share my thoughts with all of you today on this incredible album. Despite only getting 5 hours of sleep and being insanely tired, I'm probably gonna have to cut this a lot, so don't mind that. Moving forward, full disclosure, I am not a music critic. I am not here to analyze instrumentation and technique and production, although I can say, yeah, it's great. Like, that's all I really can say. If you want that, go to John from ARTV or someone who's more experienced. I'm just a diehard fan, and I personally not only work with people who have mental health conditions, but I also have a butt ton of mental health conditions myself. If you're new to my channel, I do have videos on those if you're interested. But let's get into the album review a minute and a half in. That's why you're here, right? So anyways, Waterparks released the album Greatest Hits today, Friday, May 21st of 2021. It consists of 17 songs and is 47 minutes in length, with 6 singles specifically being released prior to the album's release. Waterparks, in my opinion, and don't come for me with the genre police, I think they're particularly a pop rock band that can fall into other stylistic categories like pop punk, even R&B, and especially on this album. And I would say this album falls into experimental, a little bit of pop even, and I'm very appreciative of the range of sounds from song to song. Instead of it just being one cohesive piece, even though it is, there are so many different stylistic elements within it that I noticed and had a deep appreciation for, because I feel albums that do that really reel you in because there's so much variety going on. So yesterday I watched an interview with Austin and a radio talk show host, and Austin specifically spoke about how he loves the band the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then he realized that the Red Hot Chili Peppers influenced this album. I also feel like the 1975 influenced this album, and I also see elements of Nothing Nowhere just with Austin's style of this like fast-paced emo rap. And although Nothing Nowhere is a bit different and that's more of what he does individually, I like that Austin experimented with that because we know he can be a fast talker and singer, and so it's nice when his songs have a little edge or something different to them. I think it brings excitement to many listeners. Unless you're stuck on, Double Dare and entertainment. And I did see comments about that, and you know what? We have opinions. Music taste is subjective. Wow, do you guys believe that? Because I don't think the internet does sometimes, but it is true. It is okay if you don't like the album, but I do. Obviously, I don't film reviews when I don't like an album. But moving forward, Austin also spoke of the guitars on this album, describing they were meant to come across as ugly, mean, and grungy, whereas other songs like The Secret Life of Me and Violet were meant to have more of an ethereal vibe in the instrumentation. So go Austin, go Jeff, etc. I think it was great personally, and especially the fact that Austin produced a lot of this at home. The quality is really incredible, all things considered, in my humble onion. Beyond this, when Austin spoke about the theme of this album as a whole, he compared it to fandom, in that fandom was also mental health focused, but mostly pertained to external stressors or factors. Whereas when he discussed Greatest Hits in the interview I watched, he said it's more so comprised of sort of his inner dialogue because it pertains to internal mental health struggles he experienced via specific thoughts and feelings. And that's definitely a theme on this album. I can see as a clinician, there's just intrusive thoughts and paranoia and left and right, but we'll get into the main themes that I've noticed in this album as we continue on. Austin also identified that the album is a lot more self-reflective in nature than Fandom was, and he cited that the pandemic allowed him a lot of time to think about things. And I've heard this from clients, friends, whoever. Yeah, I mean, it sucked. No one's trying to take that away from you or invalidate it. And I think it taught us a lot, and at the end of the day, it was a learning experience. Again, I'm not trying to glamorize it. I'm just saying we did come out of it a little more self-reflective and realizing what to sacrifice, what not to sacrifice, where to find a balance, that we do need to take care of our mental health. I think we've come to some important realizations due to the pandemic, personally. Austin even spoke specifically in this interview of feeling like an alien, which I've said this in videos. I feel this way so much. I was reading a blog about how people with complex PTSD often just feel that way. I'm not diagnosing Austin. I'm not ethically allowed to. He's not my client. He's a real person. I don't know him. But it also makes sense for a creative and just someone who's so unique as an individual to completely feel like an outsider and that people don't relate to them, and feeling like an alien, although some of it's good, like, cool, I'm unique, I'm different, whatever, also ends up making us feel a little bit isolated too. So having some depression and anxiety makes sense, which we know Austin has because he has spoken about it in music, he's spoken about it in interviews, etc. And him being open about it, I think, is super important, especially because his fan base is largely teens, and that helps to decrease some of the stigma around them talking about mental health and getting the help that they need. I felt that this interview was captivating, and I wanted to discuss it in this review because an important discussion persisted regarding that many of us have mental health conditions and feel like no one's going to understand our experiences and that our experiences are different from others. But at the end of the day, what they were discussing is there will be someone who understands, and a lot of the cognitive distortions or existential thought processes that are depicted on this album are actually common in other human beings too. And Austin discussed like putting out music, like no one's gonna get this. And then his fans are like, oh my gosh, me. And you know, people tend to relate to it, or even people that interview him are talking about, yeah, like I go through struggles too, Austin, and I might relate to you. But I still empathize with him feeling like an alien, because just because people relate doesn't mean they 100% understand, right? Some people might partially understand, they might have a similar experience, but as unique human beings, it's not entirely going to be the same. I understand why he may feel left out to some extent. So when listening to this album, Austin recommended that we don't go in with expectations. He instead suggested to let it happen at you. And I like the term at you because to me, that symbolizes there's a spiritual experience for the listener the first time they check out new music. And the album, I feel, is so in your face in a sense that it makes sense to make a statement like this, that the music is actually happening at you because you're immersed in it. And that's great because that's being mindful, that's actively participating in an activity. So music is a wonderful coping skill, hobby, passion, etc. for people. It's just a wonderful therapeutic creative endeavor, and I have a lot of respect for Austin with that. So I do have a general analysis of some lyrical themes that are in the album, but I did take some individual notes, and yes, I am scrolling on my Chromebook right now, giving my brain some credit, okay? But I have some notes. So let's go through. So Greatest Hits is the intro. I don't have too much to say about Fuzzy currently, and it's probably because my brain is a little fuzzy, but I loved the song as a whole. I'm just gonna go through what I have notes for. So Low Key as Hell. Low Key as Hell seems to be a lot about identity, who Austin is as a person. As he has previously described, Austin is very extroverted on stage, but he also likes to stay in, ignore his phone, and write, which showcases him having emotions in a very private way. But beyond that, in this song, Austin's stating appreciation for his fans, supposedly saying, if you need me now, I'll be there somehow. And that also seems to pertain to his friends. It seems like he has strong friendships. But again, we don't fully know him. Like, he's made the point. We only see what he posts on social media. I was reading an interview where he was talking about, I heard we have 50,000 thoughts a day. And you know what? I probably do. And I tweet maybe 3 times a day. And then people think they know me. And people write, oh my gosh, Austin would totally say this. And he's like, no, I wouldn't really say this. And I think it's so hard too, because he's someone in his 20s. His fan base is largely teens. And I work with teens. I adore working with teens. But the age difference does make sense, and I think Austin a lot of the time with that might just feel a little bit out of place and misunderstood, and that's because developmentally as a teen, you are figuring out your identity, and that is normal. And as an adult, you are too in certain ways, but certain aspects of it tend to be more solidified for certain people, so developmentally, it just looks a little bit different. So moving forward into Numb. Numb is one of my favorite songs on the whole album. It's just so pop punk in nature, and I love when Waterparks goes more edgy and pop punk. And so this song is about Austin's expectations for his music to stay stylistically similar, and the punk song in nature represents him breaking out of that, and instead of pertaining to a stylistic theme on albums, and I know with fandom he didn't get to be as creative stylistically as he had once hoped. And we also know there were 108 demos before we had these 17 songs. So as he cites himself to be an overachiever, that makes a lot of sense, and a lot of artists feel much happier when they're creating something that they enjoy, that they feel fulfilled by, instead of putting out something that's going to get views or listens or whatever. And I feel the same way as a YouTuber. I make really long-winded videos, and that is just the way that I express myself. That is how my brain works, and it would take a lot of work to narrow it down. Even taking these notes was hard, and they are not really summarized. They are just thoughts that I want to honor and express, and I think Austin is doing the same thing in his music as well. So when we are numb, we can be dissociative, or we can be doing something purposefully, like self-destructive behaviors, to numb ourselves out from having intense emotions, from feeling pain. And remember, with emotional pain, a lot of people also feel physical pain, and it's very intense, and it can be very exacerbated for people as well. So it makes sense why we would go into this response. And I love this song because of the line, "You only like me when I'm numb." And yes, he may be talking to fans, but it represents a lot in general. And I feel this way as a human being of, I present so erratically online, so intense online, and yes, partially that is me, but like Austin, I have different sides to myself, and we all do. I don't think we realize how complex we are as human beings, or even like to admit it, but no one's gonna figure him out, and I think that's the thing. We need to let Austin be whoever he is and have a private life with private emotions and not peering into everything that he does, because he is deserving of that privacy. So being numb or dissociating in general, which are themes on this album as well, can be a method of survival, as well as coping with a constant influx of these intensive and heightened emotions. And whereas he's spoken about having depression and anxiety in the past, this song is representing a feeling. Even though it's numbness, it still is a feeling in a way. And it's just interesting because the actual instrumentation isn't numb whatsoever. It's not this like slow, steady song. It's like really intensive with instrumentation, but the lyricism is pointing to this theme of numbness. And I like the juxtapositions in general with the songs on this album, and I think that makes the overall themes stand out more. Violet is definitely one of my favorite songs. You're gonna see a Violet makeup look soon. No, it's coming. And Austin did cite this as a true story about him actually having a stalker, which is a little scary because I'm feeling the stalkers very excited that there's a song dedicated to them. Like, they are probably over the moon about this, but I feel like Violet definitely ties into You'd Be Paranoid Too if everyone was out to get you, because not only did Austin have this really extreme stalker that he's talking about, but he also has just been not well liked by other musicians, other people. Fans have gone in and out with him, and he's dealt with a lot of cyberbullying, which unfortunately is an issue with the internet. And that's why I see this theme of like traumatic events that Austin and probably the band in general has gone through. And again, I'm a super fan emotionally. Logically, I don't know everything I need to know. So just be gentle with me on this, because I really just feel for Austin in these situations about that You'd Be Paranoid Too if everyone was out to get you is saying, this isn't like paranoia, like I have a mental health symptom that doesn't make sense logically. Like, logically, yes, there are people out to get me, and that is very overwhelming. And I was also a little confused about the candy reference in this song, because I know Austin actually physically likes candy, and yet Genius was making it like, oh, Austin might hurt himself with substances or something like that. I mean, I'm under the impression he no longer uses any substances, and I don't want to rule it out, but again, I don't know him, so I'm not sure about that when it comes to mental health. But even someone relying on something like candy and sugar to like keep themselves awake and motivated, that can be a dependency within itself too, and it's important to address. Although Austin is, because he made a goal to drink a protein shake and eat more fruit, and I loved that. I thought those were wonderful goals. Another theme with the dissociation, so Numb and The Secret Life of Me both get at that, because The Secret Life of Me, the term dissociation itself is actually brought up, and like I said, it is a maladaptive coping skill in nature. And American Graffiti pertains to that Austin just shows you a portion of who he is on social media, and I understand him jumping around. I did previously mentioned this a little bit, but it is a good theme that you only know so much about someone from social media. You probably have an opinion of me from watching my YouTube channel or following my erraticness on Instagram and long rants, but you can hang out with me in person and I might be really talkative, or I might be quiet. It might depend on the day. It might depend on my mood, how much sleep I got. And I think it is that way for people in general. And we can't figure out people as much as we hope for, especially because we're constantly growing and evolving as people. Whoever Austin is right now, a year from now, that could change. And he could be someone different. There could be something different about him. And I think that's important to recognize because there's been a lot of comments and criticisms about Austin really just being hypocritical or fake or trying to cancel him. And again, I don't want to speak against marginalized groups because cancel culture does serve a purpose when people are unsafe. But canceling someone over using a straw is just, that's a little much. I like that that lyric is on here and Austin's a bit playful about it, but even that was irritating for the guy. And I don't think it's fair to pick apart people like this or expect someone in the public eye to be perfect because at the end of the day, they're a human being just like you. And don't lose sight of that just because you idealize this person. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm sitting here like, oh, he's so great. And I'm speaking on all the good qualities of him because I don't know him as a person. I don't know what he struggles with specifically outside of what he's publicly admitted. And I am admitting that as well. I definitely like the song Crying Over It All. Even the title itself tells you a lot of what you need to know about having strong emotions and flooding with crying. And there's a theme here of unlearning the hurt. And when I heard the term unlearn, it made me think a lot about CBT, although not my favorite modality, but it kind of ties into neuroplasticity, which is a concept of that we learned behavior over time. We learned maladaptive coping over time. So we also have the ability to unlearn those behaviors because the brain is actually able to be rewired. But I do think it's about accepting the hurt that Austin feels about certain things, although I think he has, and I think he's really processed it through his music. And it is very therapeutic to create music expressing how you feel. For See You in the Future, I think it's just such a cool wrap up. And I identified that with my mood today because the song is very erratic in the rapping parts, like Austin's going super fast and it's really like high energy, and then it just calms down. And it's so funny because when I was listening to the album today, I was dancing and I am not doing well today and I was all over the place and really rapid. And then I found myself a little bit soothed and a little bit centered and a little bit calm. And I'm someone who my mood can shift. You can watch me in a YouTube video and I can start like this and then I can be like this and I can just go in and out and all around. And I think a lot of creative people have personalities like that too. And I think that it's okay. We don't have to pick apart people and say they need to change things. They have the autonomy to decide that themselves. And I feel the same way about my clients. I always ask, okay, so there's all these things going on in your life. What do you feel you need to change? If a client comes in, I don't use the term deficit, limitation. Notice I've just talked a lot about struggles in this video. I don't like to use that because I'm very affirming in nature, and I'm someone who likes to celebrate who someone is as a person, their strengths, their abilities, their values, positive aspects of their life, whatever their accomplishments are, or maybe social supports, like good friends they have. That's not just the credit of the person who's their friend. It takes two to tango in a relationship, and they built up that friendship. And so I'm sure Austin's fans can see so many amazing things about him, but that doesn't mean he can always see it for himself. Although he does speak on this album briefly about how fans saying uplifting things to him has made a difference for his mental health, and he hasn't truly expected it or had it resonate with him at certain points, but he's appreciative of it. And I think a lot of these songs are a shout out to the fans versus the last album that was all about the toxicity. Although he gets at that on this album, he is correct in that he talks more about internal things, and it's a lot of intrusive thoughts about like his brain saying everybody hates you, right? And that's not true. Not everybody hates Austinite, but yeah, some of it's true. Some people do. Some people hate me too. And that doesn't help our brains when we have depression and anxiety. That is very painful to go through. But I absolutely adore this album. I definitely need to listen to it more. I love that the stylistic shifts in this get you dancing. They get you excited. There's so much suspense that builds throughout the album. I definitely, like I said, Numb and Violet are some of my favorite songs, as is Snow Globe. I also like The Secret Life of Me, and Like It was interesting. It was very dark and unexpected. I didn't expect that to be one of the darker songs. But to wrap up today, because I've been talking a long time, because that's my video shooting style, here are the main lyrical themes wrapped up for you. I see anxiety, I see depression, I see identity. I see dissociation or numbness. I also see unrealistic expectations of personality or character, and identifying someone as fake or hypocritical incorrectly, and making assumptions about the personality of those in the spotlight. And like I said, there's even a trauma component when we consider that Austin had to take a social media break for 5 months after dealing with the toxic culture on Twitter. And trust me, I had to leave, and I'm pretty sure I'm gone for good. So I feel you there. And having a stalker is obviously very scary. It was even scary to realize, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to him. I guess I can believe it though. But whoever that is, if you're out there, maybe you watch my video, I hope you get some help. Maybe you want to book an appointment with me. We can bond over Austin night. I don't know. I'm very interested in the psychology of someone who does that. And I also simultaneously feel bad for Austin that this happened to him. And he's been through a lot of stressors that have impacted his mental health. But despite that, he pushed through and continued to make music. And we got Jeff and Otto involved. We got John taking pictures. And I just am so appreciative of Waterparks for creating this album while I was going through a really difficult time in my life. I feel like, when am I not? But especially this week, it was really bad. And just listening to the singles over and over and over was so exciting and so inspiring. And I feel like an alien, just like Austin, a lot of the time, and I don't fit in. I've never fit in my whole life, and I constantly feel misunderstood, and I constantly have thoughts that I think other people do not understand, or maybe I go into a friendship thinking they do, and then I learn later on, no, it's not exactly that way. And I'm just so curious of what Austin's experiences socially have been. I did look it up and see that he'd been bullied and same, and that's just horrifying to me and makes me really sad to think about. But hey, maybe one day this channel will grow and Austin will come on and I can interview Austin about mental health and we can have a genuine conversation where he feels like he can present as his authentic self wherever he may be at with that day. That would be so cool. But I'm gonna stop talking now. Obviously, overall, I love this album so much for the mental health focus. Anything that spreads mental health awareness is cool in my book, and everything Waterparks is obviously going to be cool with me too. So thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I would love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. You can follow me on my Instagram. It's Julie_counseling. It is private, but I will most likely accept you. And my Facebook page will be linked in the description box down below. And I will catch you on the flip side. Bye all.